Did you want to sort of talk about the chemtrail
definitely.
scenario?
Yeah.
It does seem to be centred over areas of population primarily, but not exclusively. And I think that makes you start to ask the question. I mean, we're back to the old question again. If you try and confront this with people, they say, "Well, don't be ridiculous. Who's going to do that?" And I think the way again that this is working is that whoever is doing this, because we know that it's real, we know there's stuff going on. I don't think anybody like yourselves, if you look around, you watch for even just for a couple of weeks, you know that there is stuff going on.
Mm.
You can see, people say, "Oh, well, it's just ordinary air traffic." Well, we know that can't be true, because the air traffic is fairly tightly controlled, and they do have to fly in particular flight paths. And so, if that's the case, then why do we see such a varying pattern of trails in different? We do see the grids and we see the crescents. They're rarely in the same place in the same pattern.
Mm.
And I've like yourselves, I've watched these and I've photographed them as well. We can clearly see that this isn't ordinary aircraft activity. And I started noticing this probably in early 2005. I wasn't particularly up on it. The thing that really, I suppose, jolted me was looking out of, not this window here, but it was in that direction. I was upstairs at the time, and I saw a grid over Derby. It was in that direction in the east, and I saw a grid. And I've got this picture. I can show you later on. And I thought, wow, this was 9:45 in the evening, summertime, 10th of June, so it's quite getting close to the longest day. So it was late in the evening, and I saw this grid over Derby, and I thought, what the heck is that? And it was just as the sun was setting, so it was like a pinky colour, quite striking. So I photographed this and I sent it to the evening paper and said, "I don't think these are aircraft trails, but I'm not sure what they are. What do you think?" And they did actually they printed it. About a week later they printed it, and they printed my letter as well, which surprised me. But I'd already been looking at the chemtrails, but this was like a real wake-up call. And so I then kind of sent that round, and I got various people responding to me saying, "Oh, well, we see these too. We've seen these grids." And I got quite a few people sending me pictures of the lines, and not so many grids. The grids don't seem all that common, not as common as the sets of lines. So I sent that round, and then I wrote an article centred around this picture, and I mentioned things like orgone energy, which was also of interest, because Wilhelm Reich, who looked at orgone energy, have you heard of Wilhelm Reich at all?
Briefly,
yeah. Wilhelm Reich, he was a protege or a co-worker, I suppose protege is actually the wrong word, of Sigmund Freud, and he got into the study of human sexuality through his work with Freud, and Wilhelm Reich kind of thought there was some kind of energy involved in what drove human sexuality, and he performed some experiments with the details of which I'm not familiar. But he ended up looking at this, what he called orgone energy, which is some type of organic energy, some type of life force energy, something like this. May even be this hyperdimensional energy, maybe even another manifestation of zero-point energy, even in some slightly different frame. Okay. And he ended up inventing something called the cloudbuster, and all it was a set of copper pipes, and then he would have pipes which came down from this set of copper pipes into some running water, and he said that this would allow him to extract orgone energy from the atmosphere, and the amount of orgone energy that was at a given place would affect cloud formation. So he was able to point this at a cloud, and the cloud would disappear. It was a cloudbuster, and this experiment has been repeated multiple times. And this again ties back into the Eugene Malov story, because Eugene Malov also started to look at orgone energy, And Wilhelm Reich developed these orgone accumulators, which he ended up using for therapy, because this then went back into his original research into the human psyche. And he built these orgone accumulators, and the orgone accumulators sounds like a sort of technical thing, but they're actually fairly simple to make. The orgone accumulator was basically a box with kind of like a layered sections in it, layered enclosures. And in these layered enclosures you would put alternate layers of organic and inorganic material. And by organic material you'd put something like leaves or grass, wood shavings, that sort of thing, something that had once been living. And then in the inorganic material you'd get like iron filings, metal shavings, maybe some plastic or something, I don't know what works best. And what you'd find is that this orgone energy would get trapped inside, because I think it would come through the organic layers, but it wouldn't be able to go through the inorganic layers, or the other way around, I can't remember. But it would concentrate the orgone energy inside the centre of the box, and people could actually get inside this box, and this orgone energy would have a therapeutic effect on their health. You know, it was a therapy. And people actually came to Reich for sessions in his orgone accumulator boxes, and were, you know, felt better afterwards. But as he was practicing a form of medicine or form of healthcare, he was eventually targeted by the Food and Drug Administration for practicing medicine or, you know, treatment without an appropriate license. And they took him to court, and he also sold these accumulators because, again, you know, they're meant to have a therapeutic effect. So he sold them as having that effect, and he shipped one out of the state when there was a ruling preventing him from doing so, and he took responsibility for this, and he ended up going to court. And then there was some the court was really after him, and then he was sent to jail for a contempt of court, and he was found dead in his cell. I think that was in about 1957. He was found hung in his cell. All his books were burned. Right. Any books that mentioned orgone energy were taken out of circulation. That was in the 50s and 60s. He's the only scientist in the USA to have his books burned.
So he knew something.
So he knew something.
Yeah.
And whatever it was about orgone energy was dangerous for some reason. And anyway, so orgone energy seems to be affected. And some people build these cloudbusters, going back to the article that I've written, which mentioned Wilhelm Reich. What you can do is you can build these cloudbusters, which are an orgone energy device, where basically you get these copper tubes and you put crystals in them, quartz crystals I believe, in these tubes, and then you have this mixture of layers of organic and inorganic material in the bottom, much like the orgone accumulators. It's kind of like a modified version, and these are said that to be used to dissipate chemtrails. You can see this as a few pages on the internet. I haven't actually tried this properly, but there's quite a number of people who say yes, these do work, because they directly suck in the orgone energy from the atmosphere and the surrounding, and they direct it, and it dissipates the chemtrails.
Right.
So they're quite expensive to make, these things. They're about over 100 quid, you know. But some people say they definitely work, and there are places you can buy them. I was thinking I should get one really, just to see. But obviously, with it being that reasonable amount of money, you kind of be a bit hesitant to take the plunge, as it were.
With something that sucks the orgone energy, do you think that's detrimental to people or living organic things around it?
That's a good question, to which I don't really know the answer, but from the people that have built these things and used them, they are said only to have a beneficial effect.
Right.
And what the absolute full theory of operation is, I couldn't tell you what it is. You know, I guess you'd have to read Reich's books to get more of an understanding. Right. That's one thing I certainly haven't done. So, but I don't really feel that it's just some nonsense. You know, I think there's definitely something to it, because of the reaction that he got. You know, if he was just a fraud and a fake, and it was just a funny ha-ha nonsense thing, they wouldn't have treated him in the way that they did.
No. Much like Tesla. Yeah, the way he got treated.
Yeah, very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Quite a few parallels. So, going back to the chemtrails, I'd written this article